Hey, we're live. It's December 28th, 2023, the last broadcast of Deribit Live for the year. And we're right smack in the middle of the holidays. Christmas is behind us. Well, for some people. I know some people have traditions where they do things on New Year's or the 5th of January, 8th, but for lots of people, it's behind us. And it's been quiet. It's been very, very quiet. I don't expect we'll get a lot of people on the call either because last week everybody's getting ready for Christmas and everybody's on holidays now, but that's okay. This is going to be an interesting episode, actually. Yeah, Richard, did you ever watch Seinfeld?
I've seen probably one episode.
Wow.
Never really caught me.
Yeah, I can't tell you how horribly disappointed I am in you, but well, Seinfeld was cool because it was as they promoted it was a show about nothing.
Right.
It's a show about nothing. They just kind of like their lives, right? Which was kind of funny. So, in a way, this will be a show about nothing. we'll talk about specific things, but we could have a pretty expansive conversation because I think we're going to really get into. Everybody's in a holding pattern right now, right? So, there's a lot of different opinions out there. A lot of interesting opinions. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that too, so people can be prepared for what's coming up in the coming next 2-3 weeks, because something's coming. It's like we're chugging up the deep dark Amazon on a boat, and something's happening. It's impending doom. It's silence except for the chug 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 of the motor. That's time. It's just pushing us forward. It's coming. We can't stop it. We don't know what's going to be there, but it's going to be interesting. So I should have been a film producer, not.
Well, you kind of are in a way.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. All right. So who do we got here today? Giandrea, thank you. Good afternoon to you too. Vladimir, thank you. Happy holidays to you too. Volodya. Let's see. All right. He's already got some questions. We're going to address those later. Again, anyone? I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have heard it. But let me just do a couple of housekeeping items here. Oh my gosh, hang on, I've got a little technical issue. Just give me one moment. Richard, can you just maybe do like a little dance or something, or some type of entertaining?
I think that's going to be more shocking than entertaining.
Probably. Okay, I'm almost done anyways. Okay, there we go. Okay. Dom, we got Dom. Yeah, good. Wild boy. I don't know. It sounds like, you ever watch Jackass? The Wild Boys? Anyways, it's okay. We don't want to get into total, complete degen topics on Deribit Live because they're a reputable firm and we don't want to tarnish them at all. So, all right. So what do we got today? Well, let's take a look at the slides. We're going to take a look at the market. Again, not a lot going on. I do have one trade going on, which I'll be getting out of over the coming days, probably the weekend. I'll explain that in a moment. We're going to talk about Bitcoin ETFs, potential chaos. A lot to talk about there. I don't like to use the word unpack because I think it's overused, but there is a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of competing strategies. Again, just before we get started, a little plug. We're Rogue Trader Academy. Come and join us over at Rogue Trader Academy, roguetrader.academy, if you want to learn a bit more about options trading and take advantage of our experience. We've got weekly calls, recordings. We've got live stream, lots of educational content. We've got all kinds of good stuff happening. So make sure you come and check that out. Let me go to the slides here. I'm going to stop this, and I'm just going to go jump into the charts, if you don't mind, Richard, and talk a bit about that, and then we'll get into some of our discussion. Is this it? No, this is it over here. I found it. Okay, ETH, interesting. Yesterday, for some reason, Richard thinks it's a gamma play. We hit new recent highs, and we've been sticking. And you can see, again, my pink bar, so precise. I drew months and months and months and months ago. Where did it stop? Oh, interesting. Oh, just another coincidence, I'm sure. Poked up above it, but couldn't break it. Interesting. So if you're trading ETH, if you like to trade ETH, we don't trade in the white zones, okay? A lot of times you'll get moves right through to the top. Sometimes it'll just fart about in this area. If this decides to move up to 2,700, I'm not going to be trading it here. I might sell some calls up around 3K, low threes. But you can see my unicorns up above 3,000. That's where my unicorn is. It's not inconceivable if crypto goes wild. ETH goes from 24, 2,500 to 28, 2,900, 3,000. I mean, that wouldn't even really be that big of a move in the big picture. So my thought, looking at this chart, the price value of ETH, is that I wouldn't be too quick to jump on the bandwagon. I would want to see some absolute stupidity from this thing where it goes boom up to 3,100 or something insane, and then I'll be selling these 35s, 36 up here until the cows come home. And I'll also be playing a reversal by buying some long puts. That's my thoughts. It might not do it. I got a feeling it's been kind of suppressed. It's the little brother to Bitcoin, but I think if something does happen, it might be a bit extreme. And I wouldn't, if you do jump on it early, nothing wrong with that. Just start to scale in. Don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Scale in. So if it does keep moving, and it goes another 8% against your position, you can scale in and feel a little bit more comfortable at night. Let's take a look at Bitcoin though. This is interesting to me because I've flattened everything. And if you follow us, we've got a real-time trade alert channel, a Real Trader Academy for silver levels, silver subscribers and above. I've been flattening everything over the last few weeks. So my theta is down to practically zero or very, very little. And I'm happy to go flat into this Bitcoin news. And I think a lot of people in the world are probably doing the same thing. Unless you've got a strong opinion, you get some inside knowledge, and some people do. I'm just going to take it easy, and I'm going to play the reaction. But the thing I do have left is I do have these 12 January short strangle that I sold. So I sold the 36,000 puts, and I sold the 50,000 calls. Now I did this, I don't know, maybe a week and a half ago or something, a fair bit of time. And the entire reason I did it was we had high vols on Jan 12, of course, because the 10th is the looming date for the Bitcoin news, the SEC Bitcoin news. And we had lower vols now, and certainly last week. We could see vols were really rising the last few days. So my thought was, I'm going to sell this high vol in Jan 12. I'm going to buy it back the last week of December, most likely. Now, I did anticipate that we'd probably have creeping vol, and that's what we have had. I've closed out half the 36,000 puts. They lost about 55% of the value when I closed them. But I still have my full load at 50,000, and those are actually a little bit against me. Not because the price is moving. You can see the price hasn't done a heck of a lot. It's been sitting in this range, but because vols have been rising, of course, and that's going to affect the price of the premium. So I'm a little bit, I'm not going to say concerned, but I'm like, a little bit annoying. It didn't work out quite the way I wanted to. However, I plan to hold this. I shouldn't say this out loud because the market gods will punish me. I plan to hold this through the weekend. And if I can get out at a profit, I might even take some of the calls out flat. I might just do that. Because if everybody thinks that on the morning of the 10th, everything's going to happen, they're sort of mistaken. There's going to be a lot of volatility leading up to it as people position, and there might be fake news, or who knows what's going to happen, right? It'll be a lot of fun. So I might want to just completely liquidate and flatten that out. Totally. Now I plan here, and we're going to get into this a little bit more in depth when Richard and I start conversing on this, but I don't actually have a really strong opinion in terms of directional. I don't. I think there's a good case for the Bitcoin going way down. I think there's a good case for it going up. And I would prefer just to play the chaos, which is the subject of today's call. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be relatively flat going in there. And every time something dumb happens, well, you can bet I'm going to be there to be on the other side of that sale. Now, we do have some techniques we're going to deploy. And that's, again, on our calls. It'd be too much to try and unpack or talk about that here. But we talk about that on our daily live stream videos on how we're going to try and position ourselves, pre-position ourselves in anticipation of that happening. Now, if you're not pre-positioning yourself, what you can do is just say, you know what, darn it, I'm just going to sit on my hands. If this darn thing just decides to go down to 34,000 in one big candle, well, I'm going to sell 30,000 puts, or I'll sell 15 deltas or 10s or whatever your plan is. If it wants to go up to 60,000 in 3 minutes, okay. Well, you know what? I'll be there. I'll be selling you those 75,000 calls that expire in a few days. I'm pretty happy to do that. Whether you want to do it naked or you want to do it covered, completely up to you. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be there to jump all of these opportunities because I don't have a bloody clue which way it's actually going to go. And I can't wait till it happens because I want to come back on the call and say, ha, who would have guessed that would have happened? But I do have a strong inclination. And I think Richard might be on board with me on this, is we think it might not do anything in terms of spot moving 40% or something one way or another. We think there's going to be all kinds of weirdness happening, of course, but spot might actually not move too far from here. And one of the reasons, and I don't think this isn't some intellectual reach or anything, is if people have an opinion on what's going to happen to it, they're not going to wait till the 10th, right? They're going to jump in back in October, November, December. They're going to pre-position themselves, whatever that opinion happens to be. And the reason why it's at 43,000 right now is because that's consensus. That's where it's at. Again, buy the rumor, sell the news type of a thought train where everybody's already kind of positioned. So we might see spikes up to 50 or 55 or down to 35 or who knows what. But we think there's a good chance it might actually settle back down, kind of within 10% of where it is now. I think there's a good chance of that happening. So that's where we're going to lead off the conversation because the topic is profiting from chaos. And if you're not pre-positioning yourselves, like I mentioned, we're going to be doing, which is too much to go here, then just sit and wait. Wait for dumb things to happen. And if you've got the cojones, jump on the other side of it. But give yourself a buffer. Give yourself a buffer of space in terms of price, maybe time, and cover if you're not sure.
I agree with you.
One last thing I'll mention here, Richard, is you got to remember this stuff might happen fast. It might happen over a few minutes, a few hours. It's probably not going to be stretched out for 3 weeks or something. So you got to be able to act fast too. That's all I'm going to say.
I kind of agree with you in terms of nothing happening until tomorrow, actually. So I'm pretty convinced that the price action we've seen over the past 2-3 weeks has been entirely down to the market being long gamma around 43,000. And if you look at the open interest by expiration on Deribit, about half of it is tomorrow. So about half of all of the open interest on Bitcoin is going to vanish tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. And all for the past 2 weeks, we've had massively high funding rates on perps with the market going nowhere. That's unusual, and it kind of tells me a few things. One is that people are sort of short calls and having to hedge them and holding onto those hedges rather than buying futures. Also tells me that people are positioning for a long breakout but paying massively to do it. And it also tells me that there are an equal number of people happy to be to the other side of that and pick up all of that carry. So on balance, my kind of gut feeling is that we stay here at about 42 to 43K until tomorrow, because the dealers are going to buy as it drops below 43 and they're going to sell as it goes above. And then we get to expiry tomorrow, and then I think all bets are off because I don't know where the open interest is now. And even if it matters anymore, because the volume of it will disappear. So I think, if anything, the cause of the volatility is going to be the fact that it's the biggest expiry on record on Deribit, not because there's an ETF. I think my position on the ETF is that anyone who thinks the Bitcoin is going to the moon has already bought, otherwise they're a fool. And anyone who disbelieves that has already sold, otherwise they're a fool, right? So, so what do I think about that? Yeah, so I think after tomorrow, randomness. And I don't like to make predictions because I'm always wrong, but I've got the gut feeling that the downside is looking quite dangerous to me. And I think I would be comfortable buying a couple of puts just to be sure.
Yeah, and we're always shouldn't say always, but we're almost always have some type of short-term protection on it, just a little bit.
Yeah.
We tend to think that's a good idea, especially when it's dirt cheap. Why not, right? It doesn't really affect your theta much if you're an option seller and relying on that income. So let's get into these. There's two camps generally in Bitcoin. The one camp that the news is always going up. It's always going up, and there's the naysayers. Now the naysayers are an interesting group because they're like Charlie Munger. Or they're, oh, this is useless. It's dumb. It's all these things. Okay, I understand their point. I understand the point of the digital gold aspect. But you were reading some interesting material recently. I can't remember. It was by the founder of BitMEX?
Arthur Hayes, yeah. Actually, it's some thoughts I was having independently for the past month or so, actually, but for different reasons. So my sort of thesis has been actually the ETFs are not good for Bitcoin. They're bad for Bitcoin because they actually just subsume Bitcoin into the TradFi space, and it just becomes another bullshit asset that you'll be buying and selling in paper form. Not to say that all assets are bullshit, but it then just simply becomes a zero coupon bearer thingy that pays you no interest and supposedly hedges you against inflation, which is kind of what gold is, but gold has some track record behind it. And in fact, the paper gold market has somewhat bent the gold market out of shape. Whether that unwinds in the coming year or so is another matter. We can do one about that later. Arthur Hayes' view is that the ETFs will just consume all the Bitcoins and never trade them. So there'll be no point being a miner. Which means that the network effect dies because there's no point running a mining node anymore. And then that means that Bitcoin gets hacked with a 51% attack and becomes worthless. That's I think that's an extreme view, but I think not. It's worth not discounting. And then there's the Max Kaiser view, which is that these guys are just Nazis and they're going to steal our Bitcoin and turn it into just another, probably more along the lines of the way I was thinking. So, so if you're a counter-culture super Bitcoin maxi, and you own Bitcoin because you don't believe in central banks and finance the world, etc., and in fairness, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, but I also think that the whole financial world is corrupt, which world isn't. Then. So there are reasons to be skeptical of this Bitcoin ETF, and if you think that the Wall Street is going to carry the day, and then there's reasons to be cheerful about the prospects of Bitcoin. And I personally think there's probably both. I think that there'll be cheer and then later misery. So for my money, that's why I trade Bitcoin options to make cash, which I then buy gold with. That's kind of my operating thesis.
Yeah, it was interesting to me when you first started talking about that. I was like, the ETF will consume all the Bitcoin, and I'd never considered that angle actually.
Yeah,
maybe it will. It will take some time to do it, but Bitcoin in itself, there's no point in holding it like gold, because it doesn't throw off a dividend. It has no yield. It has the only reason to hold it is because you think it's going to appreciate in value. Does it have a benefit?
You're holding it as a hedge against a dollar devaluation, right? Or currency devaluation.
And I see the argument in favor of Bitcoin saying, well, it's a hell of a lot easier for me to have Bitcoin and go to my local store or use it online. If I've got physical gold stuck under my bed, how am I going to, use that? How am I actually hedging myself? And there's both camps have good arguments. But in terms of this, are we going to be living in a BlackRock world
Well, we probably are already. But yeah.
I don't like that very much, actually. I want to, kind of like what they did back in the 80s in the United States with the telecom industry. They broke up and they created all the baby bells, right? They took Ma Bell and they broke it up because the industry was too big, too consolidated and centralized. I feel that if I came to power, this is what I would do. I'd wake up BlackRock.
I think Andre is alluding in the chat to the idea that it's not about necessarily a hedge against the devaluation of the dollar, but that Bitcoin is actually honest money, and the world doesn't need honest money. I think it's a fair argument. I think my view on that is that it's honest money that requires a massive infrastructure to work. You have to have high-speed computers and electricity and energy and blah blah blah, and everyone owns a computer to make it work. So it's quite complicated money, but sure.
I actually have an image here. I don't know where it is, but I saw this meme. I saw this meme the other day where it said, "Oh, you thought the infrastructure to support Bitcoin was expensive.
Yeah.
Check out what it takes to support fiat." It just showed navies and armies, and it's true. And Andre's point about honest money is true. There's no central bank that each dollar is not issued as debt. Each Bitcoin is not issued as debt. So there's. I mean, we can go deep into this, but just before we go further, I put a poll in. I just published a poll, and the question is: will a Bitcoin ETF ultimately destroy Bitcoin? And what I'm alluding to is what Richard said, where the ETF will end up consuming all the Bitcoin, and none of it will get traded and eventually die. I'm in the no idea camp myself. I'm probably not, that forward thinking, but I do understand it, and some people are from. And I bet if some people thought that Bitcoin was going to be destroyed, they might not have taken this angle. They might have come to that conclusion through a different route. But it's an interesting conversation.
I think just to Dom made the point that there'll be many Bitcoin ETFs, and so they'll be trading between them, and that will cause there to be reasons for sure. This is none of this goes in a straight line, but
and I think it does bode well for the Bitcoin options market. At least at the beginning, where I think the market will grow and eclipse the Bitcoin market itself, but.
I think one thing's for certain, there'll be volatility. I think there's volatility coming to the global economy anyway, and Bitcoin is going to be an expression of that for sure, and probably a high beta expression of that. Yeah. So I can well imagine people flocking to Bitcoin because it's easy, followed by gold because it's necessary, farmland because etc.
Yeah.
And probably defense stocks as well. I think because I think my thesis is that we're going back to a 18th century world of empires and borders and skirmishes on borders.
We're certainly being divided in half between sort of the hegemonies of the East and the West. But that's a conversation for another day for sure. It's something we could talk about on a weekly call, which is always nice. For our members. Hey, so Andre actually asked here, he says he reads Arthur regularly and doesn't recall him writing about a 51% attack. I don't think that the article was about that 51%.
No, sorry, that's my embellishment. What Arthur was saying was that and he wrote it, I think, actually a few days ago. It popped up in my Medium feed. That these ETFs will, his view is if they're successful, and there's no reason to believe that they won't be because they've got massive marketing muscle, then they will hoover up any Bitcoin on the market, and essentially steal the trading supply because they're not going to be inclined to sell them and trade them, because if you're going to buy a Bitcoin ETF, you're probably going to hold it for some period of time.
Yes, you're just thinking that it makes it vulnerable.
So he stopped at this removes the network effect and therefore removes the incentives for miners. Okay, Dom's linked the article. Thanks.
Yeah, Dom said, how do you move Bitcoin between ETFs without mining? The ETFs will add monthly and quarterly flows in trading, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, an ETF might. Imagine you've got I don't know, 100 ETFs and they all net off and then they all pay each other. Well, that's 10,000 transactions a month. That's it, right? But sure, there's going to be lots of little holders as well. But
yeah. Thanks, Dom, for posting that link in the chat. So the link is in the chat of the article that Richard was alluding to originally. Yes, and of course, yes, you were overextending his thinking.
I sure, I'm embellishing a bit. And then Wild Boy says, don't you think BTC transactions is just not possible for small transactions? They were on about this with ETH 2 years ago.
Actually, Richard, let me read the question because people watching this recording won't be able to see it. So,
sorry. Okay.
So the question is, don't you think Bitcoin transactions is just not possible for small transactions? I think it could be some kind of a digital gold, but paying $5 for a fee for a $5 transaction doesn't work as a currency for sure.
Yeah, I think we're well beyond the days where Bitcoin was considered to be a currency, aren't we? It's more of a reserve asset, I think, these days. And paying $5 to move, gold bars would be really cheap. So $5 to move Bitcoin actually is pretty cheap. I think if you think in terms of one Bitcoin at a time, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but for a $5 transaction, he's saying, and it is very expensive, to do those little things with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But it's more of a reserve. It's more of a hedge. It's not meant as a means of transaction, which is what ETH is meant for.
Yeah, and then Jen Andrea says, why not use the Lightning Network for small transactions? Andre adds, small transactions are going on Lightning now, much better and faster. And I guess my view on that is that, Lightning, I don't know a huge amount about it, I must admit, but to me, it just looks and feels like a secondary market, broker market, off-chain. And I'm sure it's full of safeguards and so on, and better than TradFi. But in the end, it's just the same as brokers and prime brokers, right? As a model, it accumulates transactions and nets them off.
Vladimir is saying here, I think BCS industry grows up more. The more instruments become available, and ETF is just another one. So a future ETF will be as useful as Bitcoin options.
Well, I guess options on Bitcoin ETFs will be a nicely regulated way to trade exposure to options on exposure to Bitcoin in regulated exchanges. I know that Deribit are making great efforts to become a regulated exchange in the UAE. And I think there's probably a race to that, because in the end, to get serious volume from funds and so on, you need regulation, right? It's definitely going to be interesting, and I don't know yet whether the massive TradFi options market on Bitcoin ETFs is going to increase or decrease volatility. No idea. What it might well do is bend the premium of the ETF out of shape. So there'll be all kinds of opportunities there.
I'd actually like to know if any of the members or people on the call trade the Bitcoin ETF. What was it? The TIBO? What is the ETF?
It's a ProShares.
BITO.
It's not an ETF. It's a Bitcoin trust.
Oh, okay? Yeah.
Oh no, it's a big Bitcoin strategy ETF. It is. That's right.
BITO. It trades on the NASDAQ, right? Yeah,
that's right.
It's like $20 a share or something right now, or something. I don't know if anybody does. We were talking about that earlier. Taking a look over there, I know a lot of Americans, struggle right now with options, and we were kind of extrapolating some ideas for trading options on that. But having a $20 share value is quite low. Dom says, I only have a Bitcoin EPT in my SIPP.
Self-invested pension plan. It's interesting that you can, right? So Bitcoin is already embedded in people's financial planning and the traditional world. Which I can't help feeling that apart from some institutional money that will come into Bitcoin for whatever reason, can't help feeling that all the money that was ever going to be in Bitcoin already is. I could be using these words in 2 weeks' time, right? But
isn't some how many Bitcoins coming online? It was from Mount Gox.
There's 185,000 Bitcoins about to be distributed to the creditors of Mount Gox. Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll get their Bitcoin and sell it, drive the price down.
I think the consensus is that most of them are natural hodlers anyway, but nevertheless, yeah, there's a risk that a whole bunch of them get dumped in the market.
Yeah. G. Andrea says maybe more concern could come from quantum computer.
Yeah, well, that ends the entire cryptocurrency story overnight, and all secure shopping, all spy communications, and everything, and basically, you're going to be hunted down and killed if you're in a quantum computer. So,
wow! The story, is this a movie plot we're talking about, or
the moment you end secrecy for powerful organizations, you enter a dystopian world of horrible coercion.
Well, I mean, we've got people sitting in prison for years and years with no charges for exposing government actions. So, oh my gosh, we're going to turn into like some dark web channel or something, and what they're talking about.
Quantum computing is something I hope we never see in my lifetime. For that reason,
we'll see.
I mean, I'd love to unravel the mysteries of the universe, etc. But there's the 8 billion psychopaths in the world between me and that I have to worry about in the meantime.
Guns, gold, and what is it? Guns, gold, and
Guns, there's been a few books like this. Guns and Butter, and Guns, Germs and Steel.
No, that was a book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, which is actually an excellent book. I really enjoyed it. I don't remember the author's name, but maybe I'm thinking of the name of Guns, Gold, and Goats. That was a blog. It's the name of a blog. I remember seeing that before, and I had a little chuckle when I read it. Let's see. Dom, I bought before the ban, so forces me to stay long. Okay. My pension is up 600% now. Nice.
Nice.
180K is only 1% of supply. Yes, that's very true, Dom.
But at the margins, you chuck 100% of supply onto exchange. That in one day. See what happens to the price.
Guns, gold, and ammo. Well, I guess guns and ammo kind of go together, Dom, but sure. And Andre says, no, quantum computing is still a pipe dream now. Believe me, I'm a quantum chemist. And like you said, it's probably not going to happen during your lifetime. People who were born in 1800 probably thought, oh, you're crazy about this.
Well, once you've got quantum computing, you'll go back to people memorizing stuff and sending messages to because electronic communication will never be secure. So anyone who wants to do anything secure, whether legal or illegal, that's just like everyone being telepathic, right?
Well, and a little bit off topic is we have a private group who we a few of us share ideas from time to time, or sometimes funny memes. I dropped in there something that I'd seen before about how they can, if you have Wi-Fi in your home, they can locate where everyone is and what they're doing, like computer modeling. But part of that article that I shared also showed how advanced they are now with reading your brainwaves. So they had someone think about a banana or a woman bending over to pick up something off the floor or whatever it happened to be, and it's incredible. They can actually read your thoughts. Again, this isn't the conspiracy Deribit Live channel. It is true. It is true. So even memorizing stuff might not help you. Is the point I'm trying to make.
So there's a whole. I remember reading a science fiction book. I can't remember what it was now, where people were trained to forget the knowledge that they had, and then it had to be unlocked when they got to where they were going.
Oh my!
Yeah.
You know what we should do? We should talk with Deribit, and maybe we can, for all attendees, they can get mailed a special edition tinfoil hat.
It's just that I love science fiction and I love the future, and I love that the future is becoming science fiction. But I'm also mindful that human beings seem to always screw everything up and make it awful. So
True. All right, we got a handful of questions here. Let me just start from the top. Vladimir, what do you think about prop firms like FTMO where you can buy challenges? I really don't know.
So these are these firms where you just turn up and then you trade their money and they kick you out if you're no good, and you get to keep some of the money if you win. it's the same as anything else. You're working for free, right? So
Yeah.
and you live or die by the sword. And the day you fail, they kick you out. So if you're lucky, you'll make some money, and then eventually you're going to get booted out.
Yeah.
Because nobody wins ever forever.
So, obviously that's where I learned to trade, through prop firms. I got hired, and I went through training programs, but it was different. I had a job, I paid. Eventually, was that tied to my performance? Yes, of course. They're going to keep you around for very long if you can't make money. But this is just sort of a gimmick or trick or a spin-off of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I don't think there's probably too many long-term successful traders there. So the nice thing is I don't know one trader, not one, who hasn't taken horrific hits or gone through a year or 6 months of just can't make a dime. They make it, lose it, make it, lose it. You'd be out of that firm.
Yeah.
If you're with a proper firm, they know you're working on you've got some latitude, and you're able to work strategies there that there's no quarter. You're done as soon as you're done. Alex, regarding Rogue Trader Academy, Zigdao, Zignally Stream, does Zignally support trading on Deribit? So I don't want to speak for Zigdao, but I know that they were working hard to get that integration going. Now, I don't know if it's publicly available yet. I know it is for us. We were sort of beta testing it. We're kind of piloting the whole program, but I think that it will be coming, and there will be probably an announcement from Zigdao. In fact, next time we see the owner of Zigdao, I'll ask him specifically about that. Unless Alex or Richard, do you know anything else about that?
No, I think that they are focusing more on their white labeling product, but this is definitely continues. And I know the integration efforts with Deribit have been ongoing. So
yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear more from Bart when he gets back.
Sure. Alex, could you update us on ETF dates? Google search shows final decisions due in the second week of January. I think it's the 10th, isn't it? That's why.
I think that's what they're expecting. Isn't there some? The 10th is a deadline for the BlackRock decision and a few others.
Yeah, because the Deribit put the 12th, the expiry of the 12th on.
Yeah, but I think that's just convenient. Because that's a Friday, right?
It's a Friday. Yeah.
And so they just brought the weeklies forward a bit. That's all.
Yeah. So, and again, I mean, it's not like on the morning of the 10th we'll wake up and nothing happened. The 10th will be crazy. I'm sure there'll be some lead up to it, but maybe not.
I mean, I think the consensus is that it's 99.9% sure to happen, which means that surely it's priced in, right?
Imagine if they come out and they say, "Nah." Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy. I'd like to see.
In fact, anyone who owns Bitcoin is going to get arrested.
That'd be great.
And we'll see which exchanges can handle negative prices and which ones can't.
Negative prices. Oh, let's not scare everyone. Okay, it's probably not going to happen, but you never know. All right, Stanislav, need Richard's best predictions, advice, and Shane's chart unicorn. Are you have feeling a Bitcoin and ETH correction soon? Maybe 1 to 2 weeks. Well, again, we don't really want to make predictions, but when I look at the silly charts, I know where my support resistance is, and we both have a feeling that the price is here because consensus is already built in. So I'd expect some wild fluctuations, but I honestly don't expect go from 43,000 to 75,000 and stick and stay at 75,000. That's our new range. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen down to 25,000 either. I think we'll stay within a 10-15% range max personally.
I can't give you predictions, but I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm actually buying 3-day 1x2 put spreads and 3-day 1x2 call spreads. So for example, selling a call option at 40 basis points and then buying 2 call options at 10 basis points each. I'm doing that both sides, put some calls. On the basis that if there is a move, it'll be a big one. And I want to get long gamma on that big one, but I don't know if it's going to occur or not, or when, or which day. But definitely the time between tomorrow and the 12th are all candidates for that kind of move if it's going to happen. To me.
Yeah, Dom they added the 5th and the 12th. Yeah, the 5th was there, a couple weeks back as part of the regular, but it was a special 12th they put in early. I see the 19th is out today, and I'm just going to take a quick look at the volatility surface here. Oh my!
It's terrific, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen, Richard? It looks so funny.
Trading tools.
Yeah. You need to share your screen, though.
No, I just need to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just need to call up the thing first. Screen share.
And I'm just taking a look at it. And anybody's been watching has been watching devol creep up too. A bit of a pullback. That looks like a car part. I don't know.
Yeah, like a weapon, isn't it? So what are we saying here?
A hoe. It's a hoe. That's what it is.
So 45% over the weekend.
Mm.
Tomorrow's 50%, and then next week, Jan 12th, 63%. Okay, so down, Jan 5th, 50%. Okay, so the weekly expiries are about 50% vol. The weekends are lower, of course. And then we've got 63% of the money on Jan 12th.
Mm.
Actually 64, 50, sorry, 50 delta, 64%. With fairly even, okay, more towards the calls, I guess, but
not grossly like it was weeks ago.
No,
so that's quite interesting. And
I think I noticed this a few days ago. The market doesn't really know where the risk is,
because really, if most people thought this thing would be going up, they would just be continuously buying up until the announcement date, which should keep pushing the price higher and higher. But we see that Bitcoin hasn't been able to get up above, 44.5 or whatever that price happens to be.
I think it's interesting, right? Because geopolitically, I think Bitcoin is inviting people to buy it. Of course, if you believe that it's a store of value and will survive the whatever comes up. But in this sort of geopolitical upheaval age, which I think we're already in, but it's going to get worse. There are many things that will compete with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's where you put your spare money, but no central bank's ever going to buy Bitcoin. So there's an argument that it competes with gold, and gold is a good competitor with it. Then there's, in the meantime, you've got to pay your bills, and you've got to feed yourself. And with supply chain disruption and energy, peak oil, and all the rest of it. They used to talk about peak oil when I was 30, but it's kind of back. We are, I think, within, as best I understand it, 5 years of peak oil within the US in the shale fields. Not that the oil supply is going to run out, but it's going to get more expensive to get out. So there's a lot of headwinds against just a straight line going up. But yeah, who knows?
All right, we're almost done. A question here from Andre. The silly charts published? No, I don't publish them. I just talk about them on this call or our weekly calls for members if we want to talk about charts and trades. No, so they're not published. I might do that. Just one more thing I have to do right now, and I feel like it's one thing. It's
never ending.
Yeah.
Stream of drudgery.
Great, yeah, and I can see Bitcoin pushing down a little bit here, not a lot, but again, it tried to get up to 44, and then kind of came back down.
Well, I just think the markets. If you look, as we're screen sharing, let me show you what I mean. Options data. Here's the options open interest by expiration. So look, it's all tomorrow, right? So essentially, two-thirds of Bitcoin's business, Deribit's business goes away tomorrow. And where is the open interest? Well, there, 43,000. There's a little bit at 42.5 and a big chunk at 42. Mm-hmm. So now it depends whether the dealers are long or short gamma in these regions, right? If they're, I don't know, I can't imagine a punter like me wanting to be short gamma at the money tomorrow.
Yeah, terrifying.
So probably dealers are actually thinking about it. In which case they'll be forced to hedge, oscillate around this strike. But entirely possible that they're longer gamma a bit further out. So I think This 42 to 43 range is acting as an attractor.
Mm-hmm. And, honestly, the mass amount of open interest that's going away tomorrow is another reason why I'm kind of looking to hang on to those Jan 12 short strangles.
Yeah.
Or look at maybe unloading them over the weekend or early next week.
There's two scenarios I see tomorrow after the US expiry, which is either the market goes haywire because all this money gets redeployed in bizarre places, or absolutely nothing happens because everyone's just waiting, in which case vols collapse. And we all get out of our positions and then wait for Jan 10th.
Yeah. Good stuff. Hey, let me end my poll here. So the poll was, will a Bitcoin ETF ultimately destroy Bitcoin? And I realize we're way over time. Sorry, guys. Most people say no. And a handful of people say no idea. And nobody thinks it will destroy it.
Interesting. So nobody agrees with Arthur Hayes or Max Kaiser.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what time frame they're putting that in. I mean, that could take years,
right.
Who knows? But most people are pretty myopic in terms of just looking at what's right in front of them. So it's certainly not going to destroy this month or next month, but who knows how this will all play out. Hey, last call of 2023. I don't know how we've been doing this for since like April or something, March.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride actually. It's been, not the year I expected. I must admit. I was actually expecting Bitcoin to drop down into the 20s again, and then this old ETF, these pesky kids with the ETFs came up and spoiled everything.
Yes. Well, I think that 2024 is going to be quite a ride on so many different fronts, including Bitcoin. So as long as there's volatility, hey. We're going to always have an opportunity to make some money. And not to deviate from this conversation, we were talking again about the S&P this morning because, we've traded everything over the years. And volatility remains so low on those traditional markets. It's, people are just dying. It's hard if you're a vol seller to survive over there right now. And, of course, that's going to change too. It always does. So this
is my concern because there's now so much interest in vol staying low on the S&P that the Fed will be pressured into defending low vol evergreen markets, and that has got all kinds of implications for the value of treasury bonds and dollars, and sort of global perception of the trustworthiness of the US. That concerns me more.
And so many vol funds have sprung up over the last years. So many people trading vol funds. But anyways, let me wind this down. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Of course, you can always hang out with us over at roguetrader.academy. But for those of all you wonderful people who are on Deribit Live and so many familiar faces from day one, it's been absolutely a pleasure for us to hang out with you guys and chat and share our thoughts and have your thoughts shared with us. A lot of interesting opinions out there. So I bid you adieu and have a wonderful new year. And we will see you next week, next year in January.